Welcome to the Women on Fire podcast. We're on a mission to help you have your best menopause and rest of your life. I'm your host, Jenna Moore. I'm an integrative health menopause coach, and I've studied nutritional awareness, women's hormones through a functional medicine lens, and explored various modalities, including breathwork, mindset, and positive psychology. Join me and my guests as we discuss how to navigate the natural life transition of menopause and growing older, from waistlines, waning libidos, and what to wear now we're over 40. We discuss it all. Women on Fire is sponsored by MenoMe, a New Zealand-based company by women for women. MenoMe specialises in evidence-based, all-natural supplements to support you through every stage of menopause. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this little mini pause where I'm going to be talking about sleep. Now, I draw on the research and the experience of one of my gurus, who was Dr. Michael Mosley. He was the #1 international best-selling author of several books, including The Fast 500, The 8-Week Blood Sugar Diet, and The Clever Guts Diet. So you may have heard of him. He trained to be a doctor at the Royal Alfred Hospital in London before joining the BBC, where he spent 30 years as a science journalist and executive producer. He influenced a lot of the way many of us eat with his work, and he's credited with popularizing intermittent fasting and the low-carb Mediterranean diet. And we're big fans of the Mediterranean way of eating and the data behind it for women's health. Michael was also a much loved and well-known television personality. He won numerous awards, and he was also named the Medical Journalist of the Year by the British Medical Association. I was hoping to have Michael on as a guest, and I was so excited about it. But before I could ask him, he died while holidaying with his wife, Dr. Claire Bailey, in Greece, which was incredibly sad. His latest book was 4 Weeks to Better Sleep, which is described as a life-changing plan for deep sleep, improved brain function, and feeling great. He was known for using himself as a guinea pig, and as someone who struggled with sleep, he presented a 3-part television series for SBS called Australia's Sleep Revolution earlier this year. It's 2024 as I'm recording this. The series was based on an 8-week clinical trial run by Flinders University Sleep Institute in Adelaide, and the book is the foundation of this. So I've taken some of the jewels for this episode from 4 Weeks to Better Sleep, and I thank Dr. Michael Mosley and his family for sharing his wisdom and charm to help make the world a healthier place. May he rest in peace. I really hope you garner some little gems from his wisdom and research and enthusiasm. And I'll put all the links to the clinical trial and the book and a bit more about Michael in the show notes for you. Here's Dr. Michael Mosley's book, if you can see it. So 60% of Australian adults, and I think we can include New Zealand and possibly the world in there, have sleep disorder symptoms. Certainly, as you probably know, and it may be why you're listening or watching to Women on Fire today, it's something that can raise its head during perimenopause and postmenopause. For me, sleep was always my superpower. I just loved going to the land of Nod, and it's only been the last few years that I've actually finally understood what people mean when they say they have insomnia or that they can't sleep for due to anxiety or coffee or whatever. It's so hard, and it wrecks your day-to-day life, especially if you have to work, if you have to be productive or show up in other ways, and we all do, don't we? So Dr. Mosley points out that studies show sleep deprivation is also linked to memory and attention problems, depression, irritable mood, stress, and weight gain. So it's a big deal. It's the foundation of our health. It's the foundation of our longevity. And for women struggling in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, we've got these things going on due to hormonal chaos or shifts, changes anyway, without the lack of sleep adding fuel to the fire. So to quote Dr. Mosley, over the last 20 years or so, there has been a revolution in our sleep and how important it is. It's now recognized that not enough quality sleep, quality being an operative word, can devastate our body, brain, and microbiome, increasing the risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and dementia. So it's huge. So what I'm going to do is take some gems, here it is again, from 4 weeks to better sleep and share them with you in this episode. And I'll link to the book in the show notes for you, of course. It's crammed with info so what I've done is I've cherry picked. Dr. Mosley, however, does stress that no book can replicate what the Flinders University Sleep Institute team managed to achieve when they were creating the foundations of this book, actually. And if you have severe sleep problems, he recommends seeing a sleep specialist. However, for most of us, he feels that the advice in the book could make a significant difference to how well we sleep. Although he does say that for some it may take longer than 4 weeks to have an impact. And that makes sense because we're all different. We're all bio individuals. His first suggestion is identifying why you're sleeping badly. And this is from me. Yep. It could be those hormonal shifts along with things that come along to annoy us during perimenopause and menopause, like overactive bladder, recurrent urinary tract infections, anxiety, or a racing mind. And that's just to name a few. Another reason, back to Dr. Mosley, your sleep might have gone AWOL could be to do with your diet. Legumes and fiber-rich foods and protein and fewer sugary laden snacks help to improve both mood and sleep. And the two really go together. So that is the power of what I call lifestyle medicine. Now, a couple of gems about what happens when we sleep that you may not know, like the science of sleep. Deep sleep tends to occur earlier, and REM, which is rapid eye movement sleep, occurs later. So overnight, a network of channels known as the glymphatic system opens up and pumps cerebrospinal fluid through your brain while you're in deep sleep, washing away toxic waste from the day. I did not know that. I don't know about you. I had no idea. However, as we grow older, we tend to get less deep sleep, which means that our brains are not as good as washing away toxins. So that's something to be aware of. Dr. Mosley says this matters because an accumulation of toxic proteins in the brain, such as beta amyloid, appears to drive Alzheimer's. So it's something to be taken quite seriously. He says there's a very, very clear link between poor sleep and the development of dementia. So we really need to get our sleep quality up there. So as well as giving your brain a good spring clean, deep sleep is when your brain sorts out your memories and shifts the useful ones into storage. It discards the ones it doesn't think are so handy to have around. So while we're resting, the brain is super busy, it seems. Then we go into REM sleep, which is also important for tidying and organizing our memories, but it also helps us resolve our emotional issues. It's when we have our most vivid dreams, and it's these that help us process and deal with bad memories and experiences. Another amazing reason to get on top of our sleep quality where we can. Dr. Mosley shares that during REM, most of our muscles are paralyzed. Isn't that incredible? He postulates that's probably so we don't thrash around and hurt ourselves during an intense dream. We do carry on breathing as normal, but the only part of us that moves is our eyes, which flick madly to and fro. I had no idea, but if you see someone in REM sleep, you can see their eyes moving. REM sleep helps us also be more creative. Paul McCartney says that he came up with the tune yesterday while he slept. And the age-old advice about sleeping on a problem is spot on, because research has shown that REM increases our ability to come up with solutions to problems. Don't know about you, but I have experienced that. However, a bad night's sleep not only impacts your brain, it also affects your blood sugar levels and can lead to obesity and diabetes. Dr. Eleanor Scott from Leeds University says there's now a lot of evidence showing that people who sleep badly most nights are far more likely to become overweight or obese and develop type 2 diabetes. So one thing, when people are sleep deprived, they often crave, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I have, sweet foods and produce more cortisol, our stress hormone. Your blood sugar levels soar and your hunger hormones go into overdrive when you're tired. Plus, the areas of your brain associated with reward become more active. So you become more motivated than normal to seek out unhealthy foods like chocolate and chips. So it's kind of like this big circle. It's so important. And like it says, it becomes a vicious circle. Lack of sleep makes you fatter, but piling on extra fat, and that's especially around your neck and your gut, means that you sleep worse. So another point is that sleep issues contribute to something called metabolic syndrome, which is a real biggie for women during menopause, as we become more vulnerable to it anyway. And what metabolic syndrome is an umbrella term for a cluster of symptoms, including too much fat around the waist, raised blood pressure, increased blood sugar and cholesterol, which can lead to increased risk of type 2 diabetes, stroke, and heart disease. In fact, metabolic syndrome affects, and this isn't just women, 1 in 4 adults in the UK and 1 in 3 in Australia. So that's, New Zealand will be on a par with that. I know this seems like a laundry list of maladies coming from lack of sleep, but there are just a couple more. And remember, knowledge is power. If you have the knowledge, then you're more powerful. And then we'll get round to some ways of turning it around. Sleep deprivation can also lead to anger and irritability and suck the joy out of life. And it suppresses production of estrogen and testosterone, which impacts your libido, which I know bothers a lot of you. So the good news there, though, is that if people get a handle on their sleep issues, Dr. Mosley says he's known people whose psychological issues have disappeared entirely. Another good reason for getting your sleep on, right? So just how much is enough? According to the National Sleep Foundation, and I pulled these out for this age group, there are targets you should be hitting at different stages. So for those of us aged 18 to 65, that's 7 to 9 hours, and for 65 plus, it's 7 to 8 hours. Here's a quick little quiz to help you figure out whether you're sleep deprived. So answer yes or no to these questions. When your head hits the pillow, do you find it hard to fall asleep? Do you wake up during the night and then find it hard to get back to sleep? When you wake up, do you feel exhausted? Do you feel tired and irritable during the day? Do you find it difficult to concentrate during the day because you are feeling tired? Do you get mad cravings for carbs like biscuits, cakes, or something sweet during the day? Do you nod off while watching TV, while in the cinema, or in a public place? If you answer yes to 3 or more of those questions, it's likely you have a significant sleep problem. So time to do something about it. So before we go into those, let's take a brief look at your circadian rhythm and chronotypes because these are crucial. We release adenosine and cortisol when daylight hits to help us prepare for the day. Then melatonin begins producing when it gets dark, or around 9 p.m. actually, to help tip us back into sleep. Adenosine builds up through the day and helps us sleep through the night. It actually does promote drowsiness. And the longer you're awake, the higher your adenosine levels. And the higher they get, the sleepier you are when you finally go to bed and sleep. So that's a great thing. And that's when the adenosine is broken up and disposed of before the whole cycle starts again. However, it should be noted that caffeine can temporarily block the effects of adenosine. So that's important. Caffeine has different effects on different people, age, gender, weight, medications, and actually the oral contraceptive pill can all affect it. For me, perimenopause definitely affected it. And the average half-life of caffeine is 5 hours, but the range for that is 1.5 to 9 hours. So that means it can be in your system for hours and hours. So then we look at a group of cells called the SEN, or let me try and say this for you, suprachiasmatic nucleus. SEN raise your core body temperature before you wake, so you're ready to get going. It will also, in the early hours of the morning, switch off the production of melatonin, so you're not geared for sleep. So once daylight hits, rays from the sun hit receptors in the back of your eyes that have nothing to do with vision, but are instead linked to this SEN. SEN then sends out signals to other parts of your body, and that includes your gut, letting them know that a new day has begun and it's time to get moving. Amazing. And then the circadian rhythm, which is, night and day, gets a bit more complicated because each of our organs has their own clock. But fortunately, if they're in disarray, you can return your clock and get your body back into sync with some straightforward tweaks like eating the right food at the right time and getting exposure to strong enough light at the right time, which links back to the SEN. So about that 24-hour circadian rhythm, which is popularly talked about, the circadian clock doesn't follow a day that is exactly 24 hours. Some of us run fast and some of us run slow, and that's where chronotypes come in. So if you have a fast clock, you're a lark. You like to get up early. If you have a slow clock, you're an owl, someone who likes to stay up late. I'm a lark. Our internal clocks is interesting because our internal clocks reset every day by light, and both your age and gender play a role in your chronotype, so they can change. Are you a lark or an owl? Do you want to know? Try this quick quiz. These questions. Do you wake up bright and cheerful without an alarm by 7 a.m.? If you go to bed at 10 p.m., do you swiftly fall asleep? Do you always try to head to bed before midnight, even if you're on holiday? Or do you have trouble falling asleep before midnight? Do you need an alarm clock to drag you out of bed in the morning? Do you find that you don't need to eat until later in the day and are happy with just a coffee? Given the chance, would you sleep in until 11 a.m. or later? So if you answered yes to the first 3 questions, and no to the last 4, you have strong larkish tendencies. However, if it was the other way around, you're more owlish. It's quite fascinating, isn't it? So that's a brief overview of what's going on. Now, what does Dr. Mosley suggest to help us sleep better? Let's get to the juice. But bear in mind, this is a hugely abbreviated version. So let's go through some pointers. He suggests keeping a sleep diary, and he does have a resource for that, which I will link to in the show notes for you. Clearing your bedroom of distracting electronics, and here includes sleep trackers in here as well. Establish good bedtime habits. MenoMe actually has a sleep hygiene sheet that I'll link to in the show notes for you. Choose a wake-up time and stick to it even at weekends as well as during the week, just to keep not disrupt anything. Eat more Mediterranean-style foods and add some fermented foods because your gut loves it. So the Mediterranean-style diet includes lots of extra virgin olive oil, nuts, oily fish, fresh fruit and vegetables, and whole grains. Reasonable, not many, amounts of full-fat yogurt and cheese, as well as a glass of 2 of red with the evening meal, but only with the evening meal. Potatoes don't count as a veg. Whole grains include quinoa, whole rye, and bulgur wheat. Nuts include, and these are unsalted, walnuts, almonds, cashew nuts, and peanuts. There's not much room at all in here for cakes, biscuits, or highly processed foods, and that includes processed meats such as ham, bacon, sausages, and salami. Actually, there's quite a bit of data out there about those types of meat. An experiment carried out by the Institute of Human Nutrition in New York City showed that a diet rich in fiber and protein led to more deep sleep, while foods rich in sugar and simple hard carbs led to more fragmented sleep. So it underlines everything that I often say. Another study published in 2017 was carried out by Professor Felice Jacker. She's the director of the Food and Mood Centre in Melbourne, and I would love to have her on here. So she showed for the first time that putting people with moderate to severe depression on a Mediterranean-style diet led to such big improvements in mood that many were no longer clinically depressed. That is incredible and groundbreaking. Try time-restricted eating, which is a gentle form of intermittent fasting. I'll link to an article on that. Manage your stress levels with mindfulness of breathwork. I'll also link to those. Avoid coffee within an hour of getting up in the morning, or at least until you eat. It's not great to have coffee on an empty stomach. Expose yourself to bright light first thing in the morning, and I add in there without sunglasses. Move and do plenty of resistance exercises. Great. Try to keep your belly fat down by aiming for a waist measurement that is less than half your height, and take a look at sleep restricting therapy, which deliberately reduces the amount of time you spend in bed so that you are very tired when you get there. And that sort of leads into get out of bed if you can't go to sleep, and don't go back until you feel tired. So to summarize, there are 3 distinct states of sleep: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. During the night, and we didn't cover this, we sleep in roughly 90-minute cycles, with most deep sleep happening in the early part of the night and most REM sleep happening later on. The important thing is not how long you spend in bed, but how long you spend in bed asleep. The 2 main drivers of your sleep-wake cycle are adenosine, which we talked about, and your circadian clock. Your primary circadian clock follows a roughly 24-hour day. In some people, it runs fast. They're known as larks, and others slow. They're owls. This clock is reset every day by bright morning light. The amount of sleep you need varies hugely on your genes and your age. The most reliable way to tell if you are getting enough sleep, and this is a great little trick, is to lie down in a quiet room in the afternoon if you can, and see how quickly you fall asleep. If you fall asleep within 10 minutes of closing your eyes, it suggests you are seriously sleep deprived. So time to do something about it. The Mediterranean diet can help with sleep quality. In closing, I'd like to share with you about the saffron and Mary Peri and Perky Post and the symbiotic Happy Go Tummy, which comes from our sponsor, MenoMe. So as we've heard today, a healthy gut microbiome is key to how you sleep, and Happy Go Tummy is a symbiotic, which is a combination prebiotic and probiotic, and you need both of these for a healthy, happy gut. So Happy Go Tummy contains award-winning Livox from kiwi fruit and the probiotic rhamnosus derived from cheese. Livox helps to increase the levels of F. proud, which is our most abundant bacteria, and they're considered to be the marker of a healthy gut. So that's a very key and simple point. The saffron in Mary Peri and Perky Post has been shown to significantly improve sleep quality within a 4-week period, and it supports a good sleep wake cycle, insomnia, restorative sleep, sleep quality, and alertness upon awakening, as well as mood irritability and anxiety. So I'm going to link to those in the show notes for you as well. I hope this episode has been of help to you. As always, if you have any questions, please get in touch. And here's to your sleep, Dr. Michael Mosley's book, and a warm thank you to him, and may he rest in peace. He will be very much missed. Thank you for listening to this episode of Women on Fire. If you like what we share, please subscribe and give us a rating and or a review. In addition, visit our sponsor's YouTube channel at MenoMe 100, where you can subscribe and watch all of the interviews. That's the best way to support this podcast so we can continue to bring it to you. Thank you for your interest in midlife, menopause, and Women on Fire. Let's keep it